Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. A little bit different episode today. Kind of want to show you guys a little bit of what I do at work and what it looks like to rig out a new boat. So behind me I got a new Warrior V238 and a customer purchased the boat as well as all the accessories that he likes, and he's going to pay us to put them on. So let me give you a rundown of what we got. So for a bow mount, we're going with the new Minn Kota Altera Quest. It's a 36 volt. I don't think the guy plans to spend a lot of time in the front of the boat because that's about the only thing going up there. We are putting a quick release plate on it, and it's being paired with 320 amp hour Norsk lithium batteries. These are sweet. There's an app, and with the app, you can get up to 12 years of warranty on these batteries. The fourth is for clean power. This boat is set up that all the electronics run off of their own circuit, and we do like to use the Norsk for that as well. We've got two standard lead acid batteries for the motor and the power steering. We are putting a iTroll kit on the kicker, and for the down rigging and the sides of the boat, we are going to go with 60-inch tracks paired with 36-inch tracks. We're going all the way down the gunnel of the boat. The bow is getting 24-inch tracks, and the splash well way back by the transom is going to get the 18-inch tracks. The 18-inch track in the splash well, I really like that setup. It's pretty easy install. It's going to go on this surface here, and then I'll put a wire management puck here. All the cables will cleanly go into there. And on the back of the boat, we're putting a 13-inch Humminbird Apex. The Helm is getting a 16-inch Apex. These are the Warrior adjustable transducer boards, and on here is going to be the down and side imaging transducer. We're putting a through hull on with a temp sensor that will mount on this transducer, and then we're also putting a fish hawk on. So this will be the receiver, and then that will go on the downriggers, I would assume. I'm not familiar with this fish hawk setup, but that is all going to mount in that track on the splash well. We are also putting Canon power ports in, flush mount on the rear for the downriggers. We're going to put an onboard lithium charger for the clean power battery. Here's some of the wire management pucks we like to use. These are cornfield units. I don't use them very often, but I really like the quality of these. And yeah, there's quite a few bits going on this boat. I'll give you guys a quick tour of the boat here and how I prep them before I start working on a project this big. So normally there's trays here, there's covers here. I trim the motor down, I take all that stuff out. I take the seats out. Plano boxes under both jump seats come out. I'm gonna end up taking these Helm doors off so I can get under there. And I just prep the boat completely and get it ready. That way I don't have to work around a bunch of stuff in the boat. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get batteries put in this boat. I like to start with that because I'm trimming motors and I got to put the iTroll on and power up graphs, make sure everything's working. So I just start with the batteries and PDI in the boat, making sure there's oil in the motors, and doing all the normal setup stuff. And then we start putting accessories in and drilling holes in your fiberglass. So come along. All right, so I'm going to start back here in the starboard side rear compartment. This is the battery compartment. This is how it's going to look to start. And what I'm going to do here, since this boat is set up for clean power, which is ran off this top breaker, I want to separate that from the other two batteries, but I got to fit all three batteries in here. So I'm going to move this tray over. I'm going to turn this tray sideways, and I'm going to add another tray back here, and we'll show you what that looks like. So I took a big gamble, and I took the power cable off of the breaker that runs to the battery, and I wanted to see if it was going to be long enough to go over to that compartment, because the way they routed it, it would actually follow those two red wires into this compartment, down through this loop, and then back into the battery compartment. So the gamble was cutting 50 or more zip ties, some of them being a screw down style, so I'm gonna have my work cut out for me replacing some zip ties. But it paid off because the cable is long enough to get from the breaker to the other battery compartment. So that worked out, but I will have to build a ground cable. All right, just want to give you guys a little sneak peek of the battery installation. So here we've got our main battery. These are for the motors. This will be the accessory battery, which would be like house power and all of that jazz. There's my clean power leads that run to the port side. There's the clean power breaker, and then the standard on-off breaker there. So if we come to this other side, there's the Norsk, and now I'm going to pull, there's a blue yarn down there that Warrior so generously leaves in the boat. It runs up to the trolling motor compartment, and I'm going to install the battery leads for the battery charger for this battery. So here's the trolling motor battery compartment. The blue yarn comes up into here through the rigging tube through the center of the boat. The way I like to do this, since Warrior's courteous enough to pull this cord and leave it in there, I like to pull my fish through to grab the battery leads, and then I'll pull the cord back through with it just in case somebody in the future needs to pull something through there. All right, I've got charger leads and everything hooked up on the clean power battery. Those leads run down under the tank and they follow this blue yarn up through the rigging tube in the center of the boat into the trolling battery compartment. And then Warrior makes it nice. This little panel, this carpet panel comes out, but you can pull the wires up through this hole, and I'll have them in this compartment ready for when I get the new charger. The North charger will go on that back wall. Then we'll wire the charging cables together out the charging port, so you only have to plug in one cord. So I got the trolling batteries in. They make it nice, lots of room for that. Try to keep them organized as much as I can. And then Warrior's got a pretty nice cover that goes over it so you don't even know that they're there. All right, next order of business, we're gonna put the quick release slide plate on the Quest. I'm gonna pull these side panels off, get this mounted up, and then I'll have somebody help me toss it on the boat. This slot needs to be visible on the rub rail, so this slot needs to be fully exposed on that side of the boat. That will ensure enough clearance for the head of the trolling motor when it's deployed. I got the trolling motor on, and right now it's in the deployed position with the slide plate. And I want to show you, there is a little bit of thought that has to go into this before you drill and mount this. First things, before I mounted it, I actually removed one of the screws up here in the corner that hold this plate on, because you'll never get that screw out. Another thing is the Alteras come with a head mount, and I'm not interested in drilling more holes in fiberglass if I don't have to. We are putting tracks on the front, so I put the track in a position that I can use the head mount in the deployed or stowed mode. Just in case you're going across the water and it's rough, with the trolling motor deployed, you can still use the head mount. So I'll mount this to a track accessory that will slide in the track. The next thing is wire management, cable management. Really big fan of these cornfield fishing gear. So I'm gonna mount this in this position. It's clean and out of the way, and all my cords for my trolling motor and any future graphs that would go up here will go through this cornfield puck, which is a 1 5/8 hole. I don't have an 1 5/8 for this grommet. I do have 1 3/4. These are not perfectly straight anyway, so it's an 1/8 inch difference. This 1 3/4 will work just fine. So I've got my hole drilled and my grommet installed. Now I like to put the puck up here, mark the rest of the holes. I'll take this cap off because it mounts in a separate set of holes, but get that marked, get those drilled, and I'll through bolt those. There's bolts with washers and nuts, and then we'll get some wiring ran through there and keep on moving. All right, we're just about finished up in the bow here. Show you a little progress. This is what the cable management looks like. Got the plug mounted on the trolling motor. This is in the deployed position. I have both of the 24-inch tracks mounted in the bow. These are surface mounted, which means they're not bolted from the back. There's not a lot of load on these tracks, so I like to surface mount them. I'll put some silicone down to help hold them down, kind of create a barrier between the gel coat. Also, some silicone in the holes kind of acts as a Loctite to keep the screws from backing out. Now on the port side, this is where I had to get creative. I've got the track mounted, and I wanted to use the Altera trolling motor mount, but I didn't want to drill more holes in the fiberglass. So what I ended up doing is using 2 of the track inserts, flipping the top one over, and then I drilled and tapped 3 holes out of the 4 for the Altera head mount and Loctited those bolts in, and it worked out really well. The nice part about this is you can take it out if you want, and also the trolling motor is deployed right now, so if you're going down the lake and you didn't want to stow it, you can still grab the head, but if you slide the trolling motor back to the stowed position, you can still utilize this head mount. So here's the head mount with the trolling motor in the stowed position. You really got to think when you do all this type of stuff, because if that puck would have been up too high, your slider would have hit it. So just a lot of things to keep in mind before drilling holes that are permanent in somebody's gel coat. All right, our next order of business is linking the Ethernet cable from the Altera, running it into the Helm. We're going to mount our 16-inch apex on the Helm, as well as putting in an Ethernet box under the Helm, a 15-foot Ethernet cable to get to the 13-inch apex on the transom or splash well. We've got our Y cable for our through hull transducer and our side imaging transducer, as well as the power cable for the graph. So this is next on our agenda. All right, here I am underneath the driver's or starboard helm in the Warrior 238. Here's our clean power circuit, and they're already fused, which is really nice from Warrior. On fuse 1, I installed our Ethernet box, 12-volt power. On 2, out the hole that I drilled in the dash, I have 12-volt power for the graph. That's the Apex 16. Here's my graph mount. I'm too close to the cross member for a washer on that one, so I snugged it, but these 4 will do just fine, or the other 3. We've got Ethernet cable coming from the trolling motor. We've got 5-foot Ethernet cable going to the apex, and I've got a 20-foot Ethernet cable going to the 13-inch apex that will be on the back. Here I have both of my transducers and a Y cable that run up to the apex. We have a through hull and a side imaging, and they run down the gunnel. I can't tie anything up down in the gunnel. I'm gonna have to drop everything in here in order to do my tracks on the gunnel, but making good progress. Everything under the helm is super clean. So here's the Apex 16 on the helm. We went ahead and used the gimbal only to mount this. It's a little more firm, keeps it nice and centered. I did have to space the back up just a smidgen. I used some rubber bushings to space the rear up to tilt the gimbal just enough to make this system work. And then I obviously put in a cable management puck to clean it up, but that's what the graph on the helm looks like. All right, new day in the Warrior. Making some good progress today. 18-inch splash well track. I'm also installing another of the cornfield wire management pucks. On the Warrior, this entails a hole saw drilling in this way and then going to the bottom and hole saw drilling up. There is a rigging tube that runs right underneath this, so you need to unscrew the zip ties, drop it out of the way, and then get through that. But this is going to be a nice clean install here in the back. So for the rear, for the splash well, it's getting a 13-inch apex. I'm mounting it to a fish gear mount, which I don't quite understand. This mount fits in the track perfectly, but there's nothing to keep it from sliding in the track. So I drilled and tapped 2 holes and put thumb screws in, and that way when you get it where you want it, you can lock it in. I don't know why they don't do that if it fits in their own track. We're also going to be putting the iTroll mount on the side of the gimbal. It's going to be doing a lot of downrigging. The iTroll is going to be at the back, and the cleanest setup will be just right off the side of the gimbal. Another thing we're putting in the splash well in the track is the fish hawk, and I'll be putting that on another mount. So that'll just be next to all of this. So the TraxTech mount has tons of holes in it, but nothing quite lines up for my fish hawk install. So I ended up marking this hole. We're going to get that drilled and tapped, get a couple 1/4-inch bolts holding this thing on, and we're going to slide these up into the splash well track and see where the iTroll is going to go. But I've got a pretty good idea of how this is going to go. It's going to be pretty clean installs only. You guys know the drill. So I've got the Apex mounted, the fish hawk mounted, and I believe if the customer approves, we're going to mount this to the bottom of the gimbal like this instead of the side. This will allow everything to kind of be within reach and easily accessible. Next, I'm going to move all this out of my way, and I'm going to install a through-hull high-speed transducer down here in the bottom and do some wire management, clean all my wires up. I've got a side imaging transducer to install, the receiver for the fish hawk, and a temperature probe for the through hull on the back on a transducer board. But first I'd like to get this through hull installed. So we're gonna work on doing that next here. Working in the transom, getting the through hull transducer mounted. I ended up scuffing the fiberglass and getting it all cleaned up, mixed up some 2-part epoxy, and I'm weighting the transducer down with one of my Milwaukee batteries so it doesn't move while I'm wiring back here and doing some cleanup. Probably going to install a clean power drop bus bar back here because I've got graphs and stuff that needs a power source, and there's no drops for graphs in the rear. I'm going to be giving that through hull transducer time for the epoxy to dry, and I'm going to get the transducer mount board on the back of the boat. It is an adjustable board, and basically with this I'll be able to put the fish hawk, the side imaging, and the temp right on here, and that way they're adjustable as well and you don't have a bunch of holes in your fiberglass. Just want to give you guys a rundown on how I install these transducer boards. First thing is, when you're dealing with your mounting hardware, we got a pilot hole, and what I like to do is find a screw or find a drill bit that's quite a bit smaller, but not too small where it's going to splinter the fiberglass. Too big, you won't have enough meat for the threads to grab. So that's the first thing I like to do, is get my drill bit squared away. The second step in this process is to hold your transducer board up, take your measurements, get it where you want it, and then while I'm holding it up, I'll mark the first hole, and then I drill that hole, and then I like to grab my countersink bit. And the purpose of the countersink bit, I do this on all fiberglass holes, whether it's gel coat or not, but the purpose of the countersink bit is, especially when you're working with nice gel coat, is it'll countersink and peel back the gel coat away, so that when this thread on this coarse thread on this screw bites, it doesn't pop the gel coat off. So I countersink the hole, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the transducer board with one screw, and then I'm going to mark the rest of the holes, drill, and do the same on all those. As far as the board location goes, I like to keep my transducers away from the bunks. So really this is about the only spot I can put them. The nice part about these is they have adjustable rails, so you can adjust the depth, but I'm going to put the fish hawk out here, so he'll have to run his fish hawk on his downrigger off of this side of the boat so they can communicate. I'll run my side imaging off of this. It is a little bit close to the prop center line. It's going to be fine because the side imaging you can't use over roughly 7 miles an hour anyway, so it's going to be submerged and there won't be a bunch of prop, issues or anything like that. Prop wash. So that's where I like to put that, and then I'll probably just split the difference with the temp sensor. So this is what the holes look like, countersunk, drilled. Now I'll put some silicone in every hole, kind of acts as a little bit of a thread locker and a sealant, and I'll throw some silicone on the back of this board and get it mounted up, and then we'll start mounting transducers to the board. All right, so I've got the transom board and everything finished up here. I did have a little change of plans. I mounted the fish hawk in the center permanently, as close to flush with the bottom of the boat as I can, because that's more of a receiver and it's maybe a little bit less particular than the temp sensor. So I put the temp sensor on the adjustable part so that if you have an issue at speed, you can lower it a little bit more. The side imaging was pretty self-explanatory. You know, I always just run the seam flush with the bottom of the boat. It does still have some adjustment. And then I like to use these little Cat 5 cable clamps, and I try to make that line as straight as possible, and then I tie up the cables to the side imaging cable, and then they just follow up and go in with the rigging. And then now I'm just going to basically be doing a bunch of wire management, try to get some of my power cables for the fish hawk and the 13 to clean power, and we're really getting close to being finished up with the electronics on this boat. Small update on the back of the boat. I did confirm with the customer and finalize the splash well setup. I ended up using a small ram mount to go right to the gimbal of the 13-inch apex, and then the fish hawk is on the track. And then we did some wire management with our cornfield puck. I did finish up the eye troll, and they're wired right into the power and ground lugs. These are battery switch controlled, so when you shut the battery switch off, you'll have no power. But there's the eye troll controller there, and then the fuse. And then I did finish up the servo install on the motor and confirm that that all works. This eye troll wire is gray, and I'm not a fan of it. I don't know why they don't use black, so I did put some wire loom. I've tried fishing them through this wire loom before, but this one's already pretty tight. So I like to run it external. I'll tie this up and get it all zip tied nice. And yeah, so next up on our list is going to be the Canon wiring flush mount plugs. They're going to go back here somewhere, and that'll be for the downriggers. And then I have a single bank battery charger for the clean power that'll get tied in under here with the other battery charger. All right, I'm under the port side helm. I've got the battery charger installed. This is an aluminum plate here, so I run self tappers in it. You can't get to the back side for nuts. And then I've got the cable spliced into my extension cable in here, zip tied up nice. Follow this one up the other battery charger power port, and we put a Y in. That way when you plug it in, both chargers come on and both chargers charge. So that's pretty much how I run the battery setups on these. Works every time. Never had any complaints. So now we're going to move on to put in the Canon power ports in for the downriggers. All right, little update. I got my Canon power plugs in. Turned out really good. I put these upside down because if it was mine, I would want it to open down and stay out of the way. This is also a good reminder that it needs to be closed. I don't know why Canon puts them the other way, but I like to open them this way. Maybe the customer would like them the other way. I don't know. This makes the most sense to me. But I put them in the exact same spot on each side. Ended up having to run battery extension cable through the rigging to the battery over here. I did have to extend this one a little bit too, and they go straight to the house battery. So I put a post on the house battery on each side, and for just downrigger specific power, and they have inline fuses. So that'll be nice, but good way to wrap up the downriggers and onto the tracks. So I've started on the tracks. I've measured and measured and measured and measured, because from this set of holes back, it is very particular where you put these tracks. Right here, it's a thinner spot, so you have the hump that comes down, and then it's flat and then another hump that comes down. And if you move this in either direction, you won't be able to get washers on the backside to bolt it. I did drill my first hole to confirm, and we are good on that. These ones I can reach. These ones I will have to surface mount. And then these ones are going to be very difficult to reach, but I think I can make it work to reach the backside. So these are the only holes that will be surface mount. And I wanted to put the 60-inch track towards the rear because of all the force that's generated from the downrigger. It will have more holding it down. Another thing, I wanted them to be back a little bit so you could still load the track from the front if you need to. And then you have your 60-inch entry point here. So really makes it nice for getting other tooling in the track system. And we're going to start drilling holes to get these installed. So on the Warriors, on the starboard side, you have to take the hose clamps off and drop this stuff down. And you can ask me how I know, but I'm sure you can figure it out. The first Warrior I ever did, found out the hard way. So drop these, get them out of the way, don't risk drilling into the stuff, and then just be careful when you're punching through the second layer. So I mark all the holes with a permanent marker, and I like to drill them with the tracks off, because if not, then you get dust between the track and the gunnel, and then you have to clean all that. So I like to take them off, and then I'm going to go ahead and drill these two holes with the proper size for a surface mount, because I don't want to accidentally drill them with my 1/4 inch and not have anything to bite to. So I'm going to drill those two first, go through, drill the rest of them with a 1/4 inch, hit them with the countersink, and then we'll start installing stuff. All right, here's what the holes look like. I've got them countersunk just to help with the gel coat. Everything's drilled. The only ones I'm super concerned about, really making sure are countersunk the best, are the ones that are surface mount, so that the coarse thread screw doesn't pop the gel coat up, just like on the back. But we're gonna get the silicone put on the back of these tracks, get some bolts ran in, and get her finished up. So here's a good look at the tracks installed. So these are single layer fiberglass. These are surface mount. These are custom bolts here. We have to make 7-inch ones because it's dual layer fiberglass that's foam filled. These ones are single layer. The rest of them are 5-inch, which we can stock those, but I'll show you what I do for these 7-inch ones. All right, so this is what I'm doing. I have to make 4, there's 2 on each side. Basically what I did is I cut the head off one of my 5-inch bolts, and then I tapered this end and I tapered the end that I cut, and I weld these two together. So this is what it looks like after I'm done welding them. And then I'll grind the weld down smooth until I just touch the threads. That way I know it fits through the hole. So there's the length of bolt that I need. I need 4 of them, and we are all done with that. So get the other side done, and this boat should be ready to rock. All right, I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm going to show you guys the final product on this track, what it entailed, and what the bottom side looks like, because that's just as important as the top. So we've got our 5-inch bolts again. We've got 2 surface mount bolts here, 2 surface mount bolts there. These are custom 7-inch long bolts, and then these are short back here. On the back side, the ones that are getting close to the harness, I like to put these little rubber caps on the threads to protect the harness, as well as moving the harness over. And you can see the existing hose clamp hole, and these ran right through where this harness was, but now I have a bit of a gap, and I moved all of the clamps. There's 2 per one clamp on this side and 1 clamp on this side. So that's what the finished product looked like. I got my transducer wires and everything zip tied up nice, and got everything vacuumed up, and this side is completed. So I'm waiting on a track for the other side, so I won't be able to complete this boat today, but I can finish getting her put back together, and then this one's going to be a wrap.